Happy Thursday. It's me, Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and this is the Podcast Lawyer Live, where we are going to talk about some big news in the legal space surrounding the podcast industry. And I will try to answer questions as much as I can if you have them. So just post your questions in the comments, and once I sort of get through this headline news, this breaking news, we'll get to those questions. So, how are things going with you? I would love to hear from you, even if you're not with a question. Just drop a note in the comments so I can see that you're here, and let me know so we can chit chat a little bit. The big news, the breaking news that I was talking about, is from the folks at Spotify, actually from Gimlet Media and The Ringer. And sorry, something happened on the screen there. The writers and producers at those two companies, Gimlet and The Ringer, both of which are owned by Spotify. So these are podcasting production companies that are owned by Spotify, but produce podcasts for Spotify and the more general podcast community. They have unionized with the Writers Guild of America East. And this is thank you to Ed Ryan over at Podcast Business Journal. I found out about this from him this morning, and actually from Podcast Business Journal this morning. And this is interesting news. The unions had negotiated collective bargaining agreement with these two companies, and the employees now have ratified these contracts. The agreements are set for 3 years, and they were unanimous. That is, all 48 people eligible to be in the union at Gimlet, and all 65 of the folks eligible at Ringer have said yes to this. So that's 113 employees. They are getting raises in salary, better job security. They're getting some benefits, and a lot of talk about diversity in this particular agreement. Let's start at the beginning. So it looks like now a base salary at The Ringer is $57,000 plus overtime. $57,000. They might want to apply for a job at the Ringer or Gimlet if you are so interested. And Gimlet's base salary for associate producers, $73,000. They're guaranteed to have annual increases of at least 2% year over year, which is great news. And there are going to be some new, more senior titles to go with people who've been there a while and earned their way up the ladder. Severance pay, minimum of 11 weeks for all employees, no matter how long they've been with the company. Now, I'm sure there's going to be an exception if you haven't been there for 3 months yet. You haven't even worked 11 weeks. They're going to pay you for another 11. Doubtful on that, but I'm sure that any established employees that have made it past some kind of a probationary period, they'll get their 11 weeks. I'm guessing. We'd have to look at the contract. Limitations on the use of contractors. In other words, we're not going to use contractors unless they are sort of in line for a job at one of these companies, and 10 months is the maximum time that a contractor will work there without being offered a position or advised there's not going to be a position available for them. They're getting benefits the same as Spotify employees, which is pretty interesting. And here's where we get into content-related stuff. Editorial standards guaranteeing that the company won't modify or depublish or fail to publish content based on advertiser input. And employees who are members of the union will not be required to work on any ad content or branded content that's being made. That's fascinating. So basically, we're serious content people. Don't ask us to do the commercial stuff. That's kind of interesting. There is going to be funding provided for diversity committees at both companies, with representatives from both management and labor showing up on these diversity committees. And the plan is that there will be a guarantee of at least half of the candidates who are open for open jobs that would be union members who get past a phone interview will be from traditionally underrepresented groups. That's BIPOC, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, military veterans, and so on. So that's pretty strong. They're going to even out the diversity inside these companies with all the new hires. They're going to get rid of, this is big. They're going to get rid of non-compete agreements that say after you leave working here, you can't compete for any employee who makes less than $155,000. And they're getting rid of all the post-employment non-compete agreements in anybody's individual contracts as well. That's pretty impressive. Now, here in California, non-compete agreements are generally not enforced anyway, but these employees are all over the world, and why shouldn't they be treated a little more fairly about that? If you're not making big money in a company, you shouldn't be asked to sign a non-compete agreement in the first place. Non-competes and non-disclosure agreements are an attempt to sort of squash you and force you to stay at the company. And there's that. They're going to form a labor management committee, and there's going to be a union security clause, which basically says nobody can be hired unless they're a member of the union or joining the union, and nobody can be fired except for just cause. So this is pretty impressive. The union came in looking for pay equity, and there were some issues around content removal and those kinds of things. So that's pretty exciting. What do you think about this? And would you want to be a worker at Gimlet or The Ringer under these new kinds of circumstances? I'm sort of interested to see the numbers. An associate producer, that's a pretty junior position, and an entry-level person at Gimlet making, in the mid to high 5 figures right out the gate. That's pretty good. So if you are looking for work in this space, this may be the kind of thing that you want to keep an eye on. This is going to set the tone for things. So pretty exciting news. What else should I say about this? I think that's it. I don't have much else to report. Thank you again to the folks at Podcast Business Journal for making the news available to us. And I did reach out to a contact over at Spotify. I haven't heard back yet, and I haven't gotten a chance to actually look at the collective bargaining agreement, but that will be available at some point, and we'll take a deeper dive as necessary. Questions? Anybody have any questions in the chat? I'm not seeing it. Nope, nobody has said anything. I've got a few people watching. I know you're out there. Drop a note in the comments so I can see you're here. And in the meantime, I'm going to pop open my browser and see if there's something happening that I'm not seeing. I'm a little concerned that the software isn't sharing everything. Well, I'm supposed to have a little commercial here, but it apparently isn't showing up. So let me just tell you that the Podcast Lawyer Live is brought to you by Easy Legal for Podcasters. That's what you see on the back there. EasyLegalForPodcasters.com is a solution for the DIY person who wants to get the legal stuff done but isn't ready to invest in a lawyer. They can do it themselves, and we have all the instruction on the ways to get your company set up, your intellectual property protected, your team structures set up, and your business deals, your commercial monetization agreements in place, all at easylegalforpodcasters.com. And if you are interested in forms and templates for your podcasting business, head on over to podcastlawforms.com, where the Easy Legal forms and templates are available. Craig says, hello, watching but no questions at the moment. Ha. Well, ha to you too. You're not helping me out any. I didn't have any questions lined up to talk about already, so that's okay, Craig. It's nice to see you. Thanks for being here. What else? Let me see. Well, one of the things that I've seen in the forums and Facebook groups the last few days has been a somewhat, I won't say heated, but a little bit agitated discussion about whether or not it's important to use a podcast release form. That is a consent and release to allow for the recording, publication, and reuse of a recording done with a guest. And as you know, I am a staunch advocate of using a podcast release form. You can get a free release that will do the job for most folks at podcastrelease.com. And you can check that out there. I'm actually going to type that one in here. Free guest release at podcastrelease.com. I say this is, this is the way to be safe and secure and make sure that you're not going to be forced to take down an episode just because the guest changed their mind or just because they've decided they don't like something about the way you said things or presented things. Now, of course, you have to have integrity and not present them in an irresponsible way, but the consent form will go a long way to taking editorial control and putting it firmly in your hands and nobody else's. You'll retain ownership of your content, and nobody else will be able to exploit it or use it without your consent. You won't have to pay your guest. Sometimes they come out of the woodwork years later and say, hey, you want to keep using that? Give me some money. So those are the kinds of things that the release form is really designed to protect against. It also gives you some protection against claims that the guest said or did something that infringed on, violated somebody else's rights. And I think these are all really important things to get clear with your guests up front. Who owns it, who gets to use it, how. All of these are documented in a solid podcast release form. So, what else? Let me also put those other links in here. Easy Legal for podcasters. And there we go. So got those things into the chat now. What else is going on in the podcast world? Anything new? I'm not seeing much today other than this is sort of big news. Podcast Movement 2021 set for Nashville in, is it late July, early August, is coming together as I understand it. And I've submitted my presentations there. And that's what's going on. Let me just look through what's going on the Facebook forums. I call them forums, but let me see something here. Not even that much going on in the podcast movement group or the Podfest group or so on today. It's been sort of quiet. Anyway, what else is going on? Let's see. I had my second COVID vaccine Tuesday evening, and I was sort of expecting to have worse symptoms than I have. Sleepless night, a little bit of a headache, but that may also be tied to the crazy sugar and caffeine freedom challenge that I'm doing, that I ran. I decided to do it for myself and thought I'd bring some other people on board. So I haven't had any caffeine or sugar since the 31st of March. Between that and the COVID vaccine, I've had a pretty significant headache for a few days, but that's something of my own doing, I guess you could say. What else is happening? Let's see. I don't have any other news. So I'm going to, rather than stand here and chit-chat and yammer at you about nothing in particular, I will say thanks for watching. And I'll be back with another episode of the Podcast Lawyer Live on Thursday next week, when we will, again, get into your questions and answer whatever's out there, dispel some myths and that kind of thing. Until then, thanks for watching, and I will see you again really soon. Whoops, there it was. Oh, join Legit Podcast Pro. That's right. Thanks, Ken, for the thumbs up. Nice to see you. Have a great day. Where'd it go? My outro is gone or something. Oh, there it is. There we go.